Hello everyone. Today I want to provide a sort of getting started guide for War Thunder because I've been playing this a lot lately and it would be nice if my subscribers would join me so that I can shoot you down. Or, fly with you and protect you and save you and stuff. But mostly just to shoot you down. So I'm going to give you a guide that's going to cover the first few hours of your game, and I'll be doing probably more videos that will cover more advanced stuff. A quick, if you haven't watched my previous Let's Try video, we'll talk about a couple things about the War Thunder experience. This is a free-to-play game. There is in-game currency here, silver lines, and the real money currency, golden eagles, premium currency. You can use the premium currency for a few different things, such as special premium planes. To get more slots past your initial 5, your first 5 you can buy with in-game currency. After that you have to spend the golden eagles to get the slot, and it increases and increases. So let's see, this one's 200 and then 500, and then it goes higher and higher and higher, and I'm not quite sure what the limit is on that. There is also a premium account which gives you these rewards. I do not recommend having a premium account. You will level up faster, but that doesn't necessarily make you better at the game. You'll end up playing at a higher tier than your skill level warrants, and you probably will not enjoy the experience. Personally, I have not spent any money on this game. That is partially because I'm a cheap bastard, but of course I have to be a cheap bastard because I'm just a poor grad student and I don't have a lot of money to spend on entertainment type stuff. Most of my money goes toward things like food and shelter and electricity, and of course the ever expensive textbooks. Now you may be wondering what the performance requirements for this game is. It's actually very well optimized, considering this is an open beta. Well, even if it was a release game, this kind of performance is quite good. Let me talk a bit more about that. Some of you may be aware that I've been working on a new intro for my channel. If you haven't done that kind of stuff before, that basically means towards the end of the production process, I make a few tweaks and then I have to sit and wait 16 hours while it tries to use all of my computer resources to render. Even throttling it so that it uses everything but 1 core and 4 gigabytes of RAM, it still takes 19 hours to do that, and while that's running in the background I can still go and play War Thunder, and I cannot tell a difference between when I'm playing War Thunder with nothing running in the background and when I'm playing War Thunder while I'm trying to use my CPU as a space heater. Right now my frame rate is up here, but it's being halved because I'm recording and it's locking the frame rate down. Normally I run at least 60 frames per second, but that's because I have a VSync on. It can run quite higher than that if you turn that off, though I don't really see the need to do that. It is a remarkably well optimized game. You do not need very much of a computer to run this, even though it looks fairly good. I mean, you can see just the screen here is a little bit more detailed, but we'll have some in-game footage here in a little bit. Now, when you first start the game, it's going to ask you to pick a country. Typically, a person will pick whatever country they're from. As for me, I picked the US. Now this is even though I know I don't typically like the US planes, I still picked the US. And that's a feeling that I have. It's a feeling that most people have. What I'm going to extremely strongly recommend is that you pick the Russians. It doesn't matter what country you want to play in the end, but for starting out, you can only play your initial country until you start leveling up a little bit, and the other countries will get unlocked. So, the Russians have the best initial starting planes, and if you want the best starting experience, you should pick Russian planes. It will also give you the most money, and you'll have generally a really enjoyable time playing these, because you'll be the best thing on the battlefield. And of course, being the best thing is always great. Once you do that, you can play a few games, clicking this 2 battle button. There are arcade battles, historical battles, and full real battles. If you want to change your average wait time, be sure to change this to any available. By default, it's going to be whatever server your country is or whatever. Ping does not have too terrible of a performance. I can play on the Russian server, being in the US, and not really notice any detrimental effects, at least not too much. So having any available is generally worth the extra or the decreased wait time for me. Your experience may vary, but that is something you can try. Now about arcade battles. They should have, in big bold letters, your experience may vary on this game mode. Arcade battles can be incredibly horrible or quite good. And there is no way to know at the beginning of the game how that game is going to turn out. And it can be crappy battle after crappy battle after crappy battle all day long. Or it can be just great battles all day long. It's extremely high variance in arcade battles. Also, in arcade battles, especially at this low level, there are going to be a lot of people that do not know how to fly. And that's probably going to include you at the start. That means there's going to be a lot of things like mid-air collisions, or people shooting your own teammates down, or all the normal stuff that you would get from people who just don't know what they're doing. And most of the times this happens, it is simply because people do not know what they're doing. They are not doing this intentionally. They just make a mistake. They aren't sure what they're doing, and they ram into you. They shoot you down. Don't rage. I mean, just take it with a grain of salt. Expect it to be there. Even in the high levels, people still do this. Now, you might think that after somebody's played this game for 6 months or so, they would have picked up a few pointers. But there are a number of mistakes that they still make that you should have learned like way back at level 1 and level 0. About the Russian planes, the reason these are so good is simply because they have an extremely good turn rate, in terms of the other planes, extremely good weapons with lots and lots of ammo, and a decent speed, decent climb rate. Basically, you're going to be the most nimble thing on the battlefield. The only thing that you should see at level 1 and level 0 that might cause problems for you is going to be this, as it has a slightly better turn time theoretically. But let's say, let's look at the fire rate of this game, or this. Just a moment for this to load. I will be right back. Okay, so here's the fire rate of this. It's not great. Now then, if we go try to fire at one of the Russian planes, here's one of the Russian reserve fighters. See, much higher fire rate, as well as having double the number of guns. So while that other plane may theoretically be a better turn fighter than you, you're still going to be much more of a threat to him than he is to you. And I think that other plane is a bit weak on the engine as far as, It does only have one wing, so it's not going to be as good in the lift part as you are. You can see here how maneuverable these little things are. Now then, let's head back to the hangar for a moment. Now, given that I've said arcade battles can be a crapshoot, you may be tempted to take your nifty reserve fighters out and do historical battles, which, while the skill level is not as a variable, there are fewer people playing them and there is a longer wait time. So if we click here, you can see wait time jumps up to 31 seconds. You also only get one plane, and it is generally a slower pace. You do not want to take your rank 0 or rank 1 or probably anything below rank 3 into a historical battle. That is because historical battles have fewer divisions based on the tiers of the aircraft. I think it's 3 or 4 divisions over 20 ranks instead of the normal 10 ranks that you get in arcade battles. That means your little awesome tiny plane that's good against rank 0 and 1 stuff might be going up against rank 6 stuff, which it is nowhere near equipped to deal with. You can do in an arcade battle, get some kills, but in a historical battle, you're not going to have the kind of distraction that you need to sneak up on a plane that's going to be so much more faster than you and have so much better higher altitude performance. Just do not take these into historical battle. You'll get torn to shreds. Just saying that. Now then, I think I will go into an arcade battle and show you a few different things you can do to kind of put you a little bit ahead of the pack. A few mistakes people make, and a few things you can do to avoid some of the common errors. So I will be back in a moment once the game loads. Currently in War Thunder, there are 2 types of maps that you're going to come across with. Really, there's 3 types, but they can be categorized into 2 types. There's ground attack, and there are domination missions. This is a domination mission with only a single airfield. Domination missions are basically a type of capture and hold mission. You have to land, well not land, but touch down on the airfield long enough for it to capture and hold that airfield against other people while the bars at the top degrade slowly over time. It is, if you've played like Battlefield type games, it's going to be very similar to that. As you can see at the start of pretty much every single type of map, you have a bunch of people that just rush right towards the middle. Don't do this. Just don't do this. Keep high and pick your target a little bit. That'll save you a lot of grief. If you're the first one there, you're the first target that the whole entire enemy team has to look at. And you definitely don't want an entire team shooting at you. So I'm just looking around here, and I decide to go after a target down here, just picking to see what I want. First, I'm going to focus on that F2A, as that is a decent target if I can get to him. That reduced speed warning that you see is not something you need to worry about in arcade. It's really just something you need to worry about in historical and realistic battles. You can completely do that. In fact, you can turn it off in settings if you want to. So we'll just try to take this guy out, but unfortunately he is a little bit too fast for us. So we will have to break off. Don't get fixated on this guy and try to capture him, but we'll just break off and then try to find something else to kill. Looking around for someone else to kill. You don't want to head right back into that big mass of enemy fighters. Keep an eye to make sure that F2A does not turn around and come after us. But it already has a friendly guy on him, so he's probably not going to be an issue for us. The enemy got the airfield, and they're starting to win now. We have this Ju-87, which is an easy target, so we're going to come over here and kill him. But then we notice this I-15, which is the kind of plane we're in. So we'll probably focus on the I-15 first, because that is the biggest threat, and then the 87 would be easy pickings. But someone else gets in before we do, so we immediately switch to 87. And here's something you're going to see a lot. A ton of fighters trying to kill one guy. Notice I did not try to turn with him, I go up. That is something that is very, very important. You see a ton of people on the tail of one guy, all trying to shoot them, and when he turns, everyone just tries to follow him in the turn. Always pull up, instead of just yanking the airplane around in a turn. You can either go up or down, but it's usually best to go up. You go down if you don't have the speed to make the turn. Not only does that conserve your energy, but it gets you out of the plane with all the other friendly fighters and greatly decrease the chance of a collision. Most of the time that you have a collision is when there's so many guys on the tail and he just turns and everyone tries to follow him. They're not looking where they're going, like that guy that you saw that had to pull up to avoid. Was it looking where he was going? Was it trying to avoid his friends? Would have just ran right into me, and we had both been out of a plane. Here we're trying to get some more altitude, and we find somebody killed. Notice we dive on him before he passes under us, and then we just have an easy picking. Set him on fire. Usually that's enough to kill him, but in this case, it turns out not to be. So we'll just go around and finish him off, while trying to keep an eye on our surroundings so that nobody sneaks up on us. There we go. Now then, let's look for somebody else to kill. There's a Lag 3, a higher ranked aircraft, so we'll probably want to take him out. If he's in this tier of battle, it probably means he's not a very good player. So if you see a high tier aircraft in a low tier match, that generally means that the player's either new to that tier of aircraft, or that they're a rather bad player. And most frequently it is because they're a rather bad player. So, easy pickings. He does try to maneuver a bit to get out of this, but it's really not enough. You are not going to outmaneuver one of these Russian biplanes. One thing you'll notice is the lead indicator, where to aim. When somebody is turning, that is not going to be where you should shoot. The lead indicator is instantaneous. It's basically, if they were going to continue along the path they are flying at that point, that is where you would aim. But if somebody is turning, their heading is continually changing, so you want to lead a little bit ahead of where the target indicator tells you to shoot. So you can see that this guy just dies, so I guess that's not a good example. Maybe we'll find somebody that's a better example, but we are losing rather badly. Not that it's going to affect our score or anything, but here's a guy you can see going to shoot a little bit ahead of the lead indicator, and our pilot is knocked out. We didn't get shot down, we just got our pilot hit. It happens quite frequently when you have low skill or low crew skills. We'll just pick our next plane and hop right back in. Losing one plane is not a terribly big deal. These are free to repair, reserve aircraft, and it's what happens in arcade battles. So we'll just get right back into this. We're doing fairly decently. We're not ahead of the pack, but we're the top 2. And somebody was a hero and tried to go for a capture, but with all those enemy fighters above him, he's probably not going to last very long. Nor is the airfield. We see this SB2M, which is one of the bombers that we looked at. So we'll go get on him, because he's going to be a fairly easy target. Normally I would suggest not picking on bombers in these biplanes, because their gunners can be enough to take you out. However, given that this is kind of air attack missions, and I do have upgraded ammo, I'm probably going to be able to take care of him without taking too much damage. I have taken out his gunner, so he pretty much has no defense against me now. That's going to depend a lot on how skilled your aircraft is. and the current situation that you're in. Kind of what map you're in, since this is a ground attack map. Everyone's going to be over A, which is where this guy is trying to run to, and he was just way off on his own, so he kind of made a fairly decent target. There wasn't a big chance that one of these guys was going to come chasing him. And we get collided with right at the end here. But the battle's over. The domination maps tend to be over fairly quickly. So just wait for a moment for it to load. And we got a decent amount of experience. We didn't do great, but we got a decent amount of experience. Here it says we killed 4, but if we take a look at the ranking, it says we killed 5, so I guess that last plane did not count. Disappointing. Quickly, before we continue, let's talk about a couple of planes. Something that is not mentioned anywhere in game is that your very first rank 1 premium aircraft that you purchase, you do not have to pay gold for. That only is your very first aircraft, and each country has a rank 1 premium aircraft for 250 gold. It's basically a named version of the normal rank 1 aircraft for each country. And for the same reasons I suggest playing the Russians, you want to pick the Russian version of this. About premium aircraft, they give you more gold, or more silver lines, than the normal aircraft of that tier. They also give you double experience. That is something you will definitely want, so you can have 2 rank 1 aircrafts in your lineup of reserve fighters and 2 rank 1 aircrafts, instead of having 4 reserve fighters and 1 rank 1 aircraft like I have. Because I made that mistake, as it did not tell me. I just said, okay, I'll just buy all the planes I can buy, and I didn't realize that one of them was a premium plane, and I just didn't have to pay for it. But again, pick this. Definitely pick this. For the rank 1 aircraft that you get, it's basically just an upgraded version of the aircraft you already have. The rank 2 aircraft is... it may not feel like as good as these planes because it's not quite as maneuverable, but it is a lot tougher. And at rank 3, you get the incredible, awesome Lag 3 series, or the initial. You get several of those throughout the game. These are low tier craft with cannons. You have to reload quite frequently, but the cannons are incredibly useful at this level. Actually, at any level. Just having one of them at the low level, though, will wreak massive amounts of damage. At rank 2, you get a couple of these kind of single engine bombers slash attack planes. These are more like light bombers. Rank 3, you get another upgraded version of this. And also at rank 3, you get 4 kind of medium slash light bombers. And these are pretty decent. And also at rank 3, you get this attack plane, which has no bombs to start off with, but has incredible durability. It's incredibly hard to kill this plane without cannons. And only the Russians get cannons. Well, not just the Russians, but I think the Russians and the Germans, I think, also get cannons at this level. But they only have 1 cannon and nothing else on their plane. Now then, let's move on to something else. Now, after your first few battles, or first battle, you will have a few decisions to make. You may notice this little person icon here, which means you can upgrade some crew skills. I have some low-skilled crews in the British branch that I've been saving up for this video. So here's... this guy only has 2 screw points, and we only have crew skill level of 1. The very first thing you want to do is put points into weapon maintenance. Probably at least until it gets to 2 points per point you put in. The reason you want to do this is this controls how long you can fire before your guns overheat and jam. So let's take this for a test flight, and I will show you what we mean without any skill points put into this. I'll be right back. Right, so here we are in our plane with the low skill crew. Let's just do some shots and see how long we can fire continuously. If we keep firing, our guns jam and we have to wait for it to reload. Every time you hear that kind of ping noise, it means one of your guns have jammed, and they will not be cleared until you reload. You can only reload in arcade battles. Reloaded. So what you should do, instead of just holding down the button, is pulse it a little bit. Give it time to cool between taking your shots. That way you can get a lot more firepower out of this without having to worry too much about it jamming. But having a better crew or better weapon maintenance skill will make you be able to hold down the button longer without ever having to worry about it jamming, which is even better. So let's go back to the hangar. After you've put points into your weapon maintenance, and that starts to get expensive to continue put points in, you can put your points in a few different skills are going to be your next priority. Reload speed may be one of them. That's not too much of an issue for your fighters that only have machine guns, but for things with cannons, reload speed is going to be a bit steep on them, more than 30 seconds. I think it's the no skill reload speed on anything with a cannon is something like 37 seconds. That is quite a long time in a dogfight. Another thing, if you're using mouse mode, which I have been in this video, this G tolerance skill, it's a good skill to put some points in. Also vitality, as you saw in my fighting earlier, my pilot got knocked out. My plane did not get destroyed, just my pilot got knocked out, and this will help decrease the chance of that. Though some of the damage done by that was friendly fire. If you notice the guy saying he was hit when I was behind that LA3 or lag 3. Another thing you may have is you may have unlocked some upgrades for your planes, and there are a few very important ones. So each of these cost money to buy. Let's see, a plane that we have not upgraded. I don't know if I have any in this branch, maybe over here. Yes, see, they're for the lower levels, they're very, very cheap. That last battle we got almost 2,000 silver lines, and these only cost 10 and 20 and 40 and 100, basically nothing. Now, the biggest upgrades you're going to get for your planes are going to be these offensive rounds and these new whatever type weapons you're using. And this one, if you look at there, plus 19% to mean time between failures. That means, again, you can fire for 20% longer without your weapons overheating. Much. It's actually quite a big improvement. The other thing is going to be the different weapon types. Let's go back to the Russians. Now, let me explain this a little bit. This particular one also gets some other stuff. Let's pick these, because I don't think they do. Or they do. Okay. I guess they all do. But you won't get that for quite some time, so we'll just talk about the offensive 7mm rounds. So you can have, by default, you get this one, and this is free. These other types you have to pay. You have to pay for each time you use 80 belts of this ammo. You have to pay 3 silver lines. Not very much for this level of playing, but if we go to something that's considerably higher, like I think 8 is the highest rank I have in this. Yeah, let's check this one. This one has bigger ammo. So these are 200 silver lines per belt, or per 30 belts. A lot more expensive. Now, something you really want to pay attention to is what these different types of ammo do. And these vary from country, and they can also vary by plane. So you see here, Tracer, Armor Piercing Incendiary, Adjustment Incendiary, and Armor Piercing Incendiary Tracer Bullet. Tracer bullets are basically bullets that have a phosphorus coating. They're the ones that you essentially see. The glowing bullets that you see when somebody fire, or when you're firing at something. The Tracer ammo has pretty much everything. Is an Armor Piercing Incendiary Tracer Bullet. Now, incendiary bullets are obviously things that set things on fire. For these lower tier planes, they are very, very, very effective. And stealth bullets are essentially bullets that don't have any tracers at all. And exactly what you'll have these kind of options in every single plane, but what universal is and what tracer is and what stealth is going to be a different mix. So here it's for stealth, it's Armor Piercing Incendiary times 3 with an Adjustment Incendiary at the end, and that cycle repeats every 4 rounds. The same with this one. It's just Armor Piercing Incendiary Tracer every round, and this one is something that repeats every 4 rounds as well. Let's see if we go to do I have anything on the British? Maybe you have some upgrades. Okay, here are some. So this guy, he has Tracer, Armor Piercing Incendiary, and Incendiary. Not an Adjustment Incendiary, but just a plain Incendiary. This one for his Tracer, he has an Incendiary Tracer and an Armor Piercing Incendiary. But most of these are Incendiary Tracers and not Armor Piercing, unlike the other Russian planes who had Armor Piercing for all of their Tracer bullets. So these are going to be less effective against things that have armor, of course. Then Stealth, Armor Piercing Incendiary, and Incendiary. So quite a big difference between those two things. And here, see, that was the armor targets, and then the universal Incendiary Armor. I think that is the same. No, it's actually different. So it's different for which between turrets as well as your offensive weapons. And the offensive weapons are weapons you fire yourself. Turrets are weapons that the AI fire, or you can manually fire them, but that's usually not as great an idea because you cannot fly your plane while you're using the turrets, unless you're using a combination of mouse and joystick, which is a little bit difficult to get used to. If we continue on looking at different types of bullets, let's try you. So this one is the OmniPurpose Armor Piercing Incendiary times 3 with the Tracer and then an Incendiary bullet. Ground targets. So again, a different option that we didn't have in the other ones. And these are 12.7mm and not 7.7mm. Tracer, followed by 3 Armor Piercing, 1 Armor Piercing Incendiary, and another Incendiary bullet. Tracers are just a whole bunch of normal Tracer bullets, so no Armor Piercing there. And in fact, no Incendiary there either, which makes these even worse than the other two that we looked at earlier. Then an Armor Piercing Incendiary. So while I would pick Tracer for the Russians, I would not pick it for this plane. And then of course Stealth. Stealth is decent, but sometimes it gets kind of bugged and the server does not seem to properly track where your bullets are. I'm not quite sure if that's a common bug, but I've had it happen a few times. Let's see. And this one has cannons. So he gets just a shake of armor-piercing incinerated tracer shells. So these are different and then a mixture of the two. So that's an odd combination, or odd list. If we go into our Russians again, we have, for instance, I think you are highly upgraded. So this has fragmentation incinerated tracer shells, high explosive fragmentation shells, high explosive fragmentation incinerated shells, and armor piercing tracer incinerated shells. Then we have the armor target one, the ground targets, and then armor targets, then tracers, and of course stealth. And I'm going with the universal ones because of the high amount of fragmentation. And you'll also notice that a lot of these planes can carry bombs once you've upgraded them. Most of the time it's not worth it. The rockets can be okay for taking out bombers, but these little bitty bombs, the performance hit on your plane is usually not worth having the additional ability to take out 1 or 2 tanks every 6 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that. So I would not recommend bombs, but rockets are kind of a situational thing, but not for the lower levels. This should get you through the first few levels of the country, enough to unlock every single country. And we'll come back to what you should do then in the next episode. Like if you like, subscribe if you're not. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.